Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy almost the end of Earth Week. Can't believe a whole week has gone by already. It's just whizzing by. Unreal. Almost in May. But to celebrate our last work day in Earth Week, I wanted to talk about the Capital Area Greenbelt because it's a little gem if you live here in the Harrisburg area that is phenomenal. And I'm not sure that everybody really knows it's even there. I think you see the trails, but you may not even recognize them for what they are. So I'm super thankful. My guests are Becky Schuchert and Dick Norford. They are board members for the Capital Area Greenbelt. And thank you both for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, Patty.
Absolutely. So can you tell me how long you've been involved with the Greenbelt? Becky, we can start with you.
I moved to the Harrisburg area in September of 1991, and within a couple of years, I was starting to get involved with the Greenbelt Association, attending meetings. And it had only just, I think 1990 is when the association formed, with the intention of restoring the Greenbelt to as close to the original plan as possible. So I was within a few years of the start of that, but I wasn't quite there at the start.
Yeah, you've been with it a long time then.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been great to watch the progress. Extraordinary.
Oh, it's unreal. We'll get to that in a minute, but like the size of the Greenbelt is really shocking. It's so impressive. And Dick, how long have you been with the Greenbelt?
I moved here in 2004 and joined that year. I became active about 2009. I came in as a bicycle rider because a large percentage of the usage of the Greenbelt is bicycle riding. So I became involved as a bicycle rider, and then met Becky, who gave me many jobs to do through the years.
So you had no choice, is what you're saying.
I had no choice.
Good job, Becky. So Becky, you touched briefly on the date, that the association was started, but how long has the Greenbelt actually been around? How did it all get started?
The Greenbelt was part of the City Beautiful movement at the turn of the 20th century. So 1901, Myra Lloyd Dock, one of the city's movers and shakers at that time, in conjunction with some other folks, put it before the Board of Trade to create $1 million bond that would create a system of parks, and the Greenbelt being the sort of chain that linked the parks. So they called it the Emerald Necklace, the parks such as Riverfront, Reservoir Park being the jewels, and then the Greenbelt being the connector for the parks. And they proceeded to acquire some land such as the Cameron Parkway, the Paxtang Parkway, but it did not get completed at that time. The First World War happened, the Depression, Second World War, and it just became sort of forgotten. So the association that was formed in 1990 did so for the purpose of finishing it and restoring the existing portions of it.
Wow, I had no clue it was that old.
It is that old. We are very lucky because so much of it the city grew up over, but there's so much that the city did not grow up over. So we have some of the original parts still available to us, and it's a real gift.
And it's amazing, really, that they thought about it back then. I haven't seen maps, of the city. I'm not sure exactly how grown up it was, so to speak, in the 1900s, early part. And so for them to be thinking in that way back then was really, really forward thinking. That's impressive.
Part of the reason that they began to think that way had to do with the horrible state the city was in at the time. We don't realize it now. We take for granted that the river is this beautiful feature that we're lucky enough to live along. But at the time, it was being used as a sewer, as a dump. It was not a great place to live. So the City Beautiful movement, in addition to creating parks, also created means of dealing with sewage and trash collection, all these things. Because before that, it was apparently just a real mess. And so with that in mind, the reason behind it all becomes more evident.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Dick, can you tell us, like, how much has been done to date to the Greenbelt? Like, how many miles do you have? Like, what areas does it encompass?
Well, let's start with how long is the Greenbelt? It's a loop, and when it started at the turn of the century, as Becky mentioned, before life got in the way and World War I and the Depression, they only completed about 12 miles of what is now a 20-mile loop. And some of the land was donated, some was taken by eminent domain. And in the late 1980s, early 1900s, when not the 1990s, when the association of which Becky and I are members of the board was formed, the ultimate goal was to complete the original loop. And as Becky said, some of that was, at the time, was rural farmland, which by 1990 had become suburban areas. So a combination of off-road trails and, in some instances, share roads completed what is officially an 18.8-mile loop. And that's been extended a little bit. It covers the largest percentages in the city of Harrisburg. The second largest municipality is Susquehanna Township. It also touches on Swatara, the borough of Paxtang, as well as a short stretch through Pennsboro, or Pembroke. So we recently, and by recently, about 2009 or 2010, Becky was then the president of the association, and she formed a group to prepare a strategic plan to some of the places where we cross roads maybe could have been a little bit safer. So the plan was to study those areas and work with PennDOT in whichever municipality as a part of our strategic plan. That also led to reorganizing the Greenbelt Association. And for anyone that's been on Linglestown Road or out Fort Hunter in the last few months, you can see the result of a lot of the work that started in 2010. So I guess that was a long answer to a short question. It's a 20-mile loop that's recently been expanded by 2.5 miles, linking Wildwood Park with Fort Hunter. And we've had a few spurs that we've built off of it. One more recently takes the Greenbelt out to Progress Avenue.
Mm. And I was actually talking to Becky about the Linglestown North 6th Street area, because for me, I didn't realize initially that that was a Greenbelt project. And I thought they were just building sidewalks on one side of the road, and then they were having people cross Linglestown Road to the other side. And I just randomly said to Becky, I don't understand why they are doing that way. And she's like, no, it's awesome. It's awesome what we're doing there. And then she showed me the map, and I was like, holy cow, that is awesome. So can you, either one of you, kind of explain that project there? Because on the surface, you don't really understand what's going on, but it is really cool.
Go ahead, Dick.
Again, the trick was to go from Wildwood Park to Fort Hunter. Both are parts of the Dauphin County Parks and Recreation System. And while that doesn't sound like a big task, you have a major task because you've got a few things that get in the way. We'll start with Route 39, better known as Linglestown Road.
Yeah.
Norfolk and Southern Railway runs there, and a major freight line, and Front Street. So with a great deal of help from PennDOT and a fabulous engineering company, Wilson Consulting Company, and designed a way to go from Wildwood Park up the ramp that comes up the Linglestown Road. If you turn left, that brings you down to Katy Street, which is where the Greenbelt turns to go, basically, for lack of another way to say it, to downtown. But if you make a complete hairpin turn, you go back towards the railroad tracks and go under Route 39.
Yeah.
And then when you go under Route 39, making another left turn, it's a straight shot from there to Front Street. That's currently not paved now. I don't know how long that you'll have this video up, but it's now late April. We had anticipated having that done and having a big ceremony in next month. I don't think we're going to make that for obvious reasons, but that is going to be paved. You can use it now. So that is just a phenomenal piece of engineering to be able to do that, with the hundreds of thousands of people that use the Greenbelt every day. What a fabulous way to be able to go between those two wonderful park areas.
Yeah.
Sorry, Patty, there was no easy answer to that, and I don't have a map.
No, I mean, you did a really good job, because, what I assumed as just somebody driving past there a lot was that you had to physically cross the 4 lanes of Linglestown Road. And when Becky said, no, it ducks you back under and you loop around, I was like, that's really cool. So, Becky, how does the Greenbelt own the land that the trails are on, and how does that work? How do you acquire the property?
The Greenbelt doesn't own any of the land. Most of it is owned by the various municipalities. So the city and the townships, Pembroke Borough, actually they don't own any, Swatara, Paxtang, but not the Greenbelt Association. And then there are a couple of very small parcels that are privately owned. And we have an agreement with those landowners. Yeah.
So basically, if you see, where you want to connect some trails or expand, then do you just approach the owners and ask if you can use a portion of it?
Right. Try to get right-of-ways to go through there. And oftentimes it's kind of, we try to figure out a means where you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours kind of situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
Maybe the property owner needed help with some erosion that was taking place on the property. We could incorporate that into the plan. And then the townships and the city, they assume the liability is how it usually works out.
I was going to ask that question too, because I was wondering.
Yeah.
And how do you fund your projects? So let's just say we have a piece that's owned by Susquehanna Township. Does Susquehanna Township fund the project, or how does the funding work for designing it and putting it in? And
yeah, we're able to leverage a lot of state and federal grant money, transportation money especially. You may think of it as merely a recreational trail, but a lot of people use it as a commuting entity and a means to get to their work or to wherever they have to go. So it's a very viable transportation asset as well. So there's all sorts of grants to apply for out there, and often one has to provide a match for that, and the matches often do come from Susquehanna Township or the city.
Okay.
In some cases, we have provided some, we the association have provided some grant money as well, match money. And our fundraising, we have one annual fundraiser, and that's the Tour de Belt. And it's normally the first Sunday in June. So strangely, we're moving that back. It just was too cool in June, so we're going to go for August.
Yeah, well, but that's a
Tentatively.
challenge.
Yeah, it does present some significant challenges.
Yeah.
And discomfort. But we're shooting for mid-August. And it's tough to move it back into the cooler weather in the fall, because in order to put the event on, we have to get a permit from the city, a park permit, so that we're not conflicting with any other events that are going on. Yep. So all the good dates really get scarfed up on January 1st.
Yeah.
And in addition to coordinating with those city park permits, we also have to coordinate with HAC, because they allow us to start and end the ride there.
Okay.
So it's not easy to move that date.
Yeah, I can imagine not. And that brings me to a question, doing it in August. What, like for the 20 miles, you know, I would imagine you have a whole host of different types of trails. Like, do you have paved trails? Do you have wooded trails? Do you have, like, what are all the different types of surfaces and environments that you guys go through?
Do we still have some unpaved sections, Dick? I'm not. Oh yeah. Yeah, along Cameron Street.
Yeah, for the most part, Patty, the trail is paved. There are sections that are gravel, hard packed gravel. There are some sections that are share the road, and a share the road is where we use a road, and it's just marked, but there's also vehicles moving. One thing that I just want to mention is that there are 400 members of our association. We have no paid staff. Everyone is a volunteer, 100% volunteer. So the money that we raise from the Tour de Belt goes to fund the actual operation of our organization and the cost of maintaining the portions of the trail, which we do in conjunction with the municipalities. So I think the answer to your question is we are about 80% paved, and about 20% of the trail is gravel. Becky, is that a good estimate?
I would have put the paved part a little higher, maybe 90 and 10, but yeah, there's a little bit that's not paved yet.
And what type of environments do you have? Like, do you have any wooded areas where you're kind of like in nature? And then I would imagine you mentioned some of it goes alongside the roadway. Do you have like a host of different environments that the trail crosses into? Absolutely.
Harrisburg is very, very fortunate. Years ago, the founders of the city of Harrisburg did not do as many other cities did, and that was to run the railroad next to the river. If you go to many other cities on the East Coast of the United States, their access to the river has to do with industrial areas, with warehouses. The railroad in Harrisburg, because of the canals that were built prior to the railroad, actually is several blocks over from the river. So we have this beautiful riverfront park, which runs between Front Street and the river. It's actually two levels. There's one level, road level, and then recently we redid the level that's down next to the river. It's sort of referred to as where the steps are. Those steps were actually built in 1907, and the sewage lines for the city of Harrisburg, the sewage used to go into the river. And in 1907, when they erected those steps or started building them, the sewage ran from the city down to that level and then was piped down to a point below the city. The first solution was just to dump it into the river below the city and let Lancaster and those guys worry about it. But but later it was developed. But that's the most obvious part because everyone drives on Front Street or uses the bridges to go to the West Shore. We then moved onto what's called Cameron Parkway, and that land was donated by the Cameron family. Mr. Cameron had owned some of that land, and that's all shaded and wooded, running next to a creek that feeds into the river. And for the most part, you've got about a 6-mile section that connects Front Street around to Reservoir Park. So you're moving on a trail area next to a creek, a fresh running creek. There's actually native fish in those areas. And then we do go through some subdivisions. In that 80 years that the Greenbelt, or what we now call the Greenbelt, was sitting idle, developers did develop some of the land. Mm-hmm. We also moved one of the most beautiful short bike rides in the state of Pennsylvania, cuts through the grounds of the Harrisburg State Hospital, and it runs right next to Asylum Run. We then cross back under Cameron Street. We run adjacent to the parking lot at the Farm Show building, and then we cross through our wonderful partner Hack, and as we move through Hack, that drops us off at Wildwood Park, and the Greenbelt actually loops around. That used to be called Weiser's Swamp, and the swamp later became the Wildwood Lake. So I guess the answer to your question is we are a urban trail, but we've also got some beautiful areas. You forget that you're within just a short walking distance from downtown as you're in the woods.
Yeah, you really stretch.
Another stretch I find really interesting is in between Riverfront Park and then Dick mentioned the Cameron Parkway, because it goes through old steel mill land. And so you can still see some like slag piles and just funky industrial wasteland. Yeah.
You see a lot of history when we're on the Greenbelt, that's for sure. Yep. And I want to apologize. My coworkers are not being respectful of my town hall, and they're barking at people, I'm sure, walking along the street. So apologies.
Patty, I lead a bike ride, or someone from the Harrisburg Bicycle Club leads a ride on the Greenbelt the first Sunday of every month, year round. Oh. And we've identified 25 points of interest. So it takes a little bit longer than just riding the route, because frequently they're guests to the city or people that don't ride a bicycle very much, and there are places to stop. I mean, just for example, is the Rutherford House, the home where Myra Lloyd, the doc, who really gets credit for founding the Greenbelt, the state capitol. You know, there's so many points of interest around the Greenbelt. It's almost a history lesson into itself. I have to point out that all of the information that we're sharing with you, as well as a map and the information on the information at Linglestown Road, can be found at www.caga.org. That's Capital Area Greenbelt.org.
I will, I'll put a link to that website in the comments under the video so people can go straight to the website and see. And I'll also link your Facebook page there as well, so people can join you there and stay up to date on everything. So when people are on the Greenbelt, do you have restrictions on what they can do? Can I take my dogs? Can I, you said about bike riding, can you do like horses or motorized, like dirt bikes, that sort of thing? What are the restrictions that you have?
As far as motorized vehicles, there are no gas-powered motorized vehicles permitted. Okay. Dogs are welcome. They must be leashed at all times. We just completed one of our members has written a set of rules, and it's just been affirmed by all of our partners, all the municipalities, Dauphin County have agreed to these rules. And they're similar to what you would find at most park rules. But we're going to be able to put those on our kiosks so that those questions will be pretty evident if you just stop at a kiosk.
I am so sorry. This is the first time they have done this. Like, oh, I don't know what they're doing. And do you have benches along the way? Like, I know my mom really loves to get out and walk, but sometimes, you know, she's got to take a break. And are there areas to kind of do that, take a break, have a seat along the way?
There are benches. They're not super reliable. You would want to scope it out before you took someone that really needed the occasional break, I think. Dick, what were you going to say?
A number of people, Patty, have asked, because it is a beautiful emerald necklace surrounding our city. Lots of people have asked to, in some way, memorialize a loved one or make a donation. We're currently working on a way to have more land for people to maybe plant a tree in memory, or maybe go a little bit more and install a bench. We've come up with a design for the bench, and we will, over the course of the next little while, be releasing some program to add some more benches. Again, those benches, we don't own any of the land, as Becky mentioned, so that has to be done in conjunction with each municipality. And as we've all learned, things move slow in the mid-state at times.
That was very tactful. Thank you. So what are the future plans? Do you have plans for extending it past the 20-mile loop, or is it pretty much where you want it to be and now you're just gonna kind of keep after it?
You're going to probably get two answers. Do you want mine first or Becky's?
Who has the better answer? Let's do it that way.
I want to hear Dick's answer.
All right. Ricardo, you're up.
I think there's some very easy expansions. First of all, Harrisburg is so fortunate to have, I mean, there's cities similar in size to the Harrisburg metropolitan area that are spending millions of dollars to develop what we already have, that our forefathers 110, 120 years ago built. But it took us a number of years, 25 years, to complete the loop and to do the work that we've talked about. But there's so many easy things that we can do. And again, this is my point of view. I'm only one of 14 board members, and you could get 14 different opinions. But I like the idea of some way connecting our Greenbelt to the West Shore, utilizing one of the bridges, the Walnut Street Bridge. And since you're on the Walnut Street Bridge, maybe incorporate a loop around City Island. We've also got, there has been discussion, and recently I learned at City Hall that PennDOT and the city have come to terms with adding bike lanes on State Street. State Street connects downtown Harrisburg, literally the Greenbelt. The vision would be perhaps making the Greenbelt, instead of a big zero, a big circle, making it into an 8. So then you would have two smaller sections of the Greenbelt. Perhaps someone could do a shorter walk. Maybe the person that you were mentioning that needed a bench might not have to walk 20 miles, but and encompassing that bike lanes. And again, these are just plans. We are so close to, as I mentioned, I'm moving. I live in Dauphin now, and I would love to see. As a matter of fact, Patty, that's when you and I first met. I was hyping about the problems with riding a bicycle on Route 322, but
yes.
Dauphin County has a beautiful park on Clarks Valley Road in Dauphin. It would be so nice to think of the Greenbelt maybe someday connecting Detweiler Park on Clarks Valley Road with Fort Hunter. I may not still be riding a bicycle when that happens, but these are all thoughts that are there. And my last wish is maybe somehow connect the Air Greenbelt with Hershey. I mean, there's a nice trail in Hershey, but so and Becky's going to shoot down all these ideas. But,
No, actually, I was, that would have been my answer too, just connecting. That's, yeah, being able to just hop on a bike and go to Lidditz or whatever. I don't know. But connections are sort of what the folks who do have the foresight and the planning backgrounds, that's where it's at, connecting these trails.
Yeah, and connecting is a great thing too, because we are swamped and overrun with vehicles. And I know, like I'm a runner. I really enjoy running, but you take your life into your own hands. Running up Linglestown Road, for instance, it's so scary. And to have these places that you can actually go and be safe. I know when I'm training for a race, some of my weekend runs are 13 miles or more. And if I'm running up Linglestown Road, that takes me 2 hours of dangerous travel, so to be able to connect long stretches where you're safe and you can actually enjoy the outdoors, it's a phenomenal gift that we have. And I really appreciate you guys being involved with that and working so hard to make it what it is. It's really incredible.
let me address that. I wear a couple of different hats, and one of those is I'm a bicycle advocate with Bicycle South Central PA and also Bike Harrisburg. I recently met with the city, and the next day I met with Susquehanna Township. And we are planning, and everything has been delayed a little bit, but we are planning to set up a temporary bike lane, which could be used for running on 6th Street. 6th Street from Linglestown Road all the way to Chestnut Street. Chestnut Street is, of course, downtown, through the Capitol property. The city has already installed some lanes, but a part of the strategic plan of Susquehanna Township is to have more connectivity. We have beautiful neighborhoods, but sometimes they don't connect. And being able to connect those neighborhoods with some type of a trail system is there. The recently released program from PennDOT on Linglestown Road, running from 6th Street all the way to Hershey, it does incorporate bike lanes and incorporate some sidewalks. So your 13-mile run could very well be going in two directions and not having to share the road with traffic.
Yeah.
We're all probably not going to be running and riding bikes a lot when all this happens, but at least it's in the plans. I think the Susquehanna Township part will be done sooner than others. And that's some of the vision with the work that we described earlier, was the people that had to approve that had a vision into the 4-laning of Linglestown roads.
Yeah, and of course the more traffic we put onto Linglestown Road, and I'm not picking on Susquehanna Township, it's just where I live, it's what I know, but we've got some major projects coming up in terms of development, and that's going to put so much more traffic on Linglestown Road. So I'm really thankful that they are doing that to take care of those of us who are on our feet or our bikes. So I do appreciate that. And if anybody wants to get involved, what type of volunteer work do you need? What kind of specialties do you need in people? Do you need engineers? Do you need people who are good at maintenance? Like, what do you need most from the citizens here to help you continue with what you're doing?
Well, we do need people who are interested in gardening at the Five Senses Gardens, which is a feature that was started in the mid-90s. The plantings revolve around appealing to the various senses. And so it's one of the most labor-intensive areas of the Greenbelt that we have. And folks could go on our website. I believe probably the contact us section would you could leave a message there and be contacted by someone that could plug you into various things. Certainly our fundraising event, our annual Tour de Belt, requires a lot of volunteers, and that a very wide variety of tasks there, from standing in a corner with a flag in your hand to pushing papers, basically.
Yeah.
That's where Aldona comes in. Aldona is our chief organizational. She counts the money and she makes everything happen. And then, of course, people to run lawnmowers are needed. A pretty wide variety of things. And there's even one task that the woman who's heading up the Five Senses Gardens right now, she desperately wants someone simply to coordinate the groups that want to volunteer with the volunteer work specifically in the Five Senses Gardens. So that doesn't even involve getting your hands dirty. It doesn't involve, you can, like, we're sitting in front of computers right now. That's all it involves, you know, phones and email. And it'd be a very important and huge help to her, because she finds it quite enough to simply make sure the work gets done, and coordinating the groups with the work is tough.
Yeah.
What I meant, like, a million things, million tasks out there.
So basically, whatever anybody is happy to lend you, you're happy to have.
Pretty much, yeah. Now, we can't have people, as far as like lending specific plants in the gardens, you know, we can't have people just go into the gardens and digging a hole and sticking their plant in there.
Yes.
Which has happened in the past. That's why I bring it up. It's not, I didn't imagine that. Yeah, but yeah, pretty much any skill, we will be able to put it to work.
We're broken down. Patty, we're broken down into committees. There is a committee structure with each of our 14 board members manage a part of the business, and we need administrative help as well as, and we do need some people to pull some weeds and as Becky said, run lawnmowers. So our website is the best place to go. We do have a volunteer coordinator. Which, by the way, we could use some help in the entire Greenbelt just with coordinating the volunteers, because we touch such a wide part of the area. There's a couple 100,000 people that live within walking or bicycle riding distance of the Greenbelt, and it's 20 miles long. It's not like we have one small location to go to. It touches on a lot of lives. So people can work in their own neighborhood or just help us administratively.
Okay, great. So I will also put that in the comments, you know, where to look if they want to volunteer. And of course, I'm sure you would not turn away a check if somebody wanted to make a donation, I would imagine.
Correct.
Yeah, we would also be more than glad to accept your membership, Patty. I did take a few minutes to check before we got on the phone. I noticed you haven't seen fit to join, so Aldona is online. She'll be more than glad to sign you up. Right, Aldona? Have you got an application? Okay.
Of course.
Well, I'll tell you what. You sign me up as a member, and I also would like to help for the Tour de Belt. So whatever you need, I'm happy to pitch in. So absolutely.
Excellent.
And this is being recorded, so you can hold me to that. So awesome.
Great.
Well, Brad, do we have any questions on Facebook that we haven't covered? Uh-oh, did we lose Brad? All right. I think we lost
I
him.
think Brad's heard all of this before, so he decided he didn't want to listen.
You better be listening. All right, let me shoot a quick text. I don't have access to the Facebook page while we're on here, so let me just check. Yeah, the Greenbelt is really, I'm just shocked. I had no clue it was that old. That's amazing. Okay, I'm getting, nope. He said we've covered all the questions, so awesome. Thank you so much for doing this on a Friday evening. I really appreciate it. It's such a great way to end our Earth Week series because this is right here in our backyard and it's something that everybody can enjoy. And yeah, to call it a green emerald necklace around the city is really just a perfect description of it. So thank you for volunteering your time and making that so great for all of us to use. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Patty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
You all
Patty, thank you for having us, Patty.
Absolutely. My pleasure. It really was. This was, you guys are a fun group. You have to start riding a bike.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.